This episode of Total Retail Talks is sponsored by Sealed Air, the global leader in protective packaging solutions. Sealed Air has been enhancing small parcel delivery since it invented bubble wrap more than 60 years ago, so it knows e-commerce packages say a lot about the retailer that sends them. Don't lose online customers because of disappointing unboxing experiences. Learn more at sealedair.com.
Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hi everyone and welcome to episode 166 of Total Retail Talks. In today's episode, Senior Content Strategist Caitlin Sullivan sits down with Sapna Parikh, Executive Director of Digital and E-commerce at Clarins. Listen in as they talk about the digital landscape of a luxury beauty market. All recorded live at this year's Total Retail Roundtable in New York City. And now, on to the show. Moving right along. Hi, Sapna. How are you?
Hello, Caitlin.
Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. Hello, everyone.
Sapna, so can you tell us a little bit about your title? And I know you're with Clarins.
Yes, so I know I've met many of you on the floor, but I recently joined Clarins about 6 months ago. I'm the Executive Director of E-commerce and Digital. And at Clarins, I'm heading up North America, which is Mexico, the US, and Canada, and all of our digital properties associated with Clarins, as well as any subsidiary.
So tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in retail and also at Clarins.
Yeah, so does everyone have an hour? Because I could probably talk about this for an hour. But I'm going to really age myself very quickly, but I actually started out in management consulting way back when, working in the utility industry, which if you know me, you're like, why are you working in the utility industry? So at that time, I was working at Accenture, and I told a few of my partners there, I'm like, hey, I don't know if this is for me. So I pretty much packed up my bags. I moved to New York. There was a thing called e-commerce and the internet, which had just started. So I'm talking the late 90s, 98 to be specific, is when I literally came in with a van, had my stuff moved to New York, and started working on building e-commerce sites. It was there were very few companies back then doing that, but we were kind of the risk takers of the group that explored all of the excitement, and we knew in our heart that this industry of digital e-commerce and retail would really flourish, drive, and change the shape of retail in the future, and obviously it has. After that, we launched a number of sites. We turned on Bloomingdales.com and a number of other retail sites, but then after that, I went into the startup world. So I was the general manager of Folica.com, which I don't know if anyone knows about, but I led that growth. We had 150% growth year over year, sold that to a private equity company, and then started my own with some other partners, our own e-commerce and brand site. And did that for 8 years, which we'll get more into. But then decided to kind of pass that along to other people to run, and was recruited by Avon to lead their digital transformation. Was there for 2 years, and then was recruited by Clarins. So a number of different stories, and I could keep going on. There's products and brands along the way. But it was a very exciting time, and so now I'm at Clarins.
So when we were talking earlier, you have a lot of experience in kind of building a brand from the ground up. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that's helped your current role?
Yeah, so I've built, I think personally, 3 brands from scratch, which is everything from, and many I've met, that know what that's like, but that's from everything from determining what is that name and looking on Google, trying to figure out what's the perfect name, to making sure that you have the domain, to building a team, to growing it, to getting financing and investment. So there's a lot that goes into building a brand, but I would say the core of a brand is it has to be in your heart. And as I was telling you earlier, that it's your baby. It is so a part of who you are and what you do, and you can't sleep at night because you're thinking about how you're going to drive that brand, but it's really core. And if it's not that way, it's not worth it. That's number one. Number two is when you're creating a brand from scratch, you're creating it for customers. So don't forget them because they are why you're building this. So two, it has, one, it has to be in your heart, and two, it has to be in the hearts of your customers. So in building a brand, you always have to have both of those things on the forefront. Every decision you're making and everything that you're thinking of, I think that when creating a brand, sometimes it can be lost because you're going in all over, so many different directions of building the team and where you're going to get funding and, what's that retailer I'm going to go for, but assure that you have those two at your core of every decision that you make.
So from your experience, there's a lot kind of happening, especially when you're building a brand. Mm-hmm. But moving forward, what are some of the lessons that you've learned from building those brands?
Yeah, so very similar to what I said before around customers and your heart, but some of the lessons that I've learned is, one, you need really a strong business plan. And so I've come from the consulting world. I went to Wharton Business School, that's what I did. So the first thing that I always worked on was creating that business plan, making sure you understand, okay, how am I going to grow? Where am I going to get the investment from? What are my financials? And then what is my customer offering, number one? And so I would say creating that business plan is so critical to what you're doing, but also understand that a brand has a longevity. And so in the back of your mind, and many people may not tell you this, but this is something that I've learned. And as an entrepreneur, sometimes you don't think about this because you think you'll be doing this for 20 years, but always understand what is your exit strategy, because that will allow you to, one, grow really rapidly, which is always very important in the beginning, but two, to understand, okay, what are your options once you grow? Because sometimes you can only, as your own nuclear team, only take it so far. So understanding and organizing yourself to assure that you have everything aligned in a business plan can really help you do that.
So moving forward, also growing these brands, growing in luxury beauty, it's not always digital first. I think it's a new area as well. What are some pieces of advice, or what's a technology that you're currently looking out for in 2018? We talked about AI. Yeah. What do you see growing right now?
Yeah, so the reason why I got in this industry is because of the passion of seeing what's on the horizon. And so in many of these companies, we were always about 5 years ahead of where because a luxury brand, it just takes longer, is what I've really seen. So where I'm really seeing the growth, I think, we've touched upon it a little bit, is around, it's artificial intelligence, obviously, it's voice search, et cetera. Those are really big. But, the way that I always analyze these technologies is around how is it going to impact my customer. So my customer is always on the forefront, and when I look at a technology like artificial intelligence, it's around how is that going to change my customer's experience, and that's how I analyze whether this is the right tool to use or not to use. I also don't look at immediate growth. I look at where we're going to be long-term, because I think in the technology space, there's a lot of quick wins, but there's a few longevity wins, and so it's really understanding, the terms are really big, but it's breaking it down and saying, how is it going to affect my customers? And artificial intelligence is machine learning. I've been researching it for the last 4 years, is really kind of revolutionary on how we understand a customer and how we can better serve them. And so that's really where I'm putting a lot of our future on.
Of course, and switching gears a little bit, we talked about managing teams and leadership tips. What are some of your management styles in leading teams?
So I have a few members of my team here who I've recently recruited because I've only been at Clarins for 6 months. But you know, the one thing that I've always done, because I've built teams, you know, over the course of 20 years, and big teams, small teams, startup teams, teams at Avon, which is, you know, global, and the one kind of key is assuring that we have innovation and risk-taking at its core. I think in the beginning, you know, I do a lot of work, you know, at least in the past 3 years, around digital transformation and making brands digital. I think that is easier said than done many times, and so it's core to how we build teams, is to assure that risk-taking and innovation is kind of fostered. I would say always looking at KPIs and sales. It's always a part of every business, your P&L, and assuring the team is really around that. And then I think lastly is really the mentorship and the guidance and providing that support, bringing team members to events like this and networking and allowing them to see and more, you know, we were talking earlier about it's not easy to find a good mentor or someone that you can really relate to. And I think it's important as a leader to really look at, you know, the team as this is a step in the journey of, your career. And, the best thing as a leader that I've seen is people just go on to do incredible things. And if I can be able to provide a little bit of guidance and mentorship in that journey, I feel that's a job well done.
Absolutely. And my final question is, we like to ask, what's your favorite quote or mantra? What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
So, and I'm going to go back to the last comment. So at Avon, I spent a lot of time with our chairman of the board, which is Jack Stahl. He was the CEO of Coca-Cola, and very personable. And I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time with him as we were traveling the United States. And, you know, his big advice to me was always around make sure you are working with the right leaders. Like, that's it. Make sure you're working with people that you can emulate and that will help foster your growth. And I take that to heart throughout this kind of journey, is to make sure you're working with people that have intention, real purpose, drive, and can also help you grow at any stage in your career.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, be sure to visit our podcast channel page at www.mytotalretail.com/podcast for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Stitcher, but be sure to subscribe to our podcast channel page as well. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks. This episode has been brought to you by Sealed Air, a leader in e-commerce packaging solutions. Learn how to improve your online customers' unboxing experiences at sealedair.com.